good evening, those of you online, Rebecca and Jessica. We're having some trouble being able to share the documents. Lisa did email everyone those documents. Are you all able to pull them up, or should I email them directly to you for you to review?
I've got
I got
them
them.
for sure.
Okay, wonderful. When we get to that agenda item, I'll just prompt you in which attachment we're looking at. Okay, we are at
Okay,
quorum.
with that, we will call to order the Council on Family Resource Centers. Today is June 11th, 2025. And we are in the administration building at the 425 East 9th Street location. Rochelle, can we get a roll call? Sorry.
Okay, excuse me. Rebecca Paris.
Here.
Jessica Mahon.
I'm here.
Jose Gomez.
Here.
Perla Garcia.
Present.
And Corey.
Here.
Scott Benton.
Present.
Everyone is present.
Thank you. We have quorum, so we will move on to item 2. These are the items for presentation, discussion, information, and/or action. First item up is 2.01. This is approval of the minutes from the March 12th, 2025 meeting of the Council on Family Resource Centers. Looking for any amendments for the draft minutes that were sent to us.
This is Ann Corey. I'd move for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ann,
This is Perla Garcia, a second.
second from Perla. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Thank you. Hearing no public comment, we will vote on this item. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is item 2.02, which is the discussion and presentation and discussion of the Washoe County School District Family Resource Center's funding status, including the status of grant applications and possible action to provide recommendations to staff on scheduling future fundraising and publicity events. This is for possible action. Send it over to you, Rochelle.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Rochelle Murillo for the record. I wanted to give you an update. We've been incredibly busy, mostly some of the Family Resource Center specialists that you see out in the audience, working on writing grants, applying for grants. It's been a difficult time just trying to complete some of those grants because some of them are federal. But I do have some updates. So we did receive funds for Healthy Nevada, which is our largest family resource center grant through the state. Unfortunately, we did receive a $40,000 cut in that grant. When asked what the reason behind that was, it was because the primary source of funding for that grant across Nevada is tobacco tax, and there was fewer folks using tobacco products, which is a good thing, but not for funding for us. So across the board, that funding was cut by 12%. I think it was 12.8% to be exact. And that's why we received fewer funds this go around. We are also waiting on our Children's Trust Fund, CBCAP, which is a federal grant. We have not received word on that. It was applied for back in April, I believe, that we submitted it. And so we're still waiting on that. We were funded for 4B, flat funded 4B. That's under family support and family preservation. We did receive SNAP reimbursement funds, so we did receive those. We applied for a SNAP education grant. We have not heard from that yet. Going back to CTF, the award was supposed to be announced yesterday. We have not heard yet, so we're hopeful that anytime, maybe while we're in here, if we put positive vibes out, we'll get at least flat funded, and we'll hear today, or at least by next week. We applied for a hunger grant that we did not get, but the Food Bank of Northern Nevada did get part of that funding, so that's good news for them. I think those are all of them that we've applied for, so we are still waiting on a few, have a few. We've also had some success with strengthening our communities, and they have sent in a commitment letter letting us know that they're willing to fund some of the staff, at least 2 of the staff that we have in Family Resource Centers. That should allow us to at least keep what we have intact. That's what we're hopeful for. So for the next year, we are looking like we should be at least at normal operation level. Are there questions about funding?
Yes, Ms. Curry.
And Corey, for the record, I'm wondering if any of your funding sources have just up and disappeared at this point.
Not disappeared at this point, although we don't know what's happening with Children's Trust Fund yet. So that one's sort of up in the air, but everything else, we do have one grant coming to an end. And that one was funded through Washoe County Human Services Agency. And those funds have just come to an end for them. And so we had some carryover, so we're able to use that. They did give us approval for additional time until we spend that down. So we have about $51,000 left in that grant, which will help us pay for a family advocate.
Thank you.
Yes.
And just a comment that I know how difficult grant making is right now.
It is.
And receiving grants, you guys have done a phenomenal job to keep things at this level.
The credit all goes to Lisa, Brenda, Jesse, and Jean.
Any questions from our council that is virtual?
This is Jessica Mahon for the record. I was just curious if were any funding sources, to kind of go along with what Ann was discussing, that are kind of on your radar for being on the being on the table for elimination or reduction that we would normally receive?
Under Family Resource Centers, not to my knowledge. I can tell you what does impact Family Resource Centers. Our federal grant, McKinney-Vento, has been completely eliminated from the federal budget. And that serves our students that are homeless. So we do access some of those services for our families that are experiencing homelessness. And currently, it's completely eliminated from the federal budget. So we did get a pending letter saying we were flat funded for that grant. However, depending on what happens with the federal budget when it's finalized, we don't know if the funding will actually be in there or not. My understanding is that there's discussion around putting it into a block grant rather than like a standalone grant like McKinney-Vento. So McKinney-Vento has been in law for all school districts in the United States since 1987. And it provides protections for students that are homeless, so it allows them to enroll without any barriers, including documentation, anything like that, and access any sort of educational service that any other student would through the funds that we receive from McKinney-Vento.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, back to you, Rochelle.
Those are all the updates that I have at this time. I do think this is a standing agenda item, so I know the committee sometimes talks about other areas around funding, so I'll open up to you all if you have any discussions, recommendations, suggestions. This is a possible action item, so those are things that you might want to consider, or you can not do that if you so wish.
I think the strengthening communities. That's what we talked about
yes.
last
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just been status quo, from what I understand. Community-wide, we submitted information and we got a letter, you said?
We did get a letter of commitment, so it does look like potentially we could get funding for 2 staff members through that. So that's going to be great. That will be for at least a year. They continue to do fundraising efforts, applying for grants. A lot of them are foundational grants, but they're also asking for funds from private donors, corporate donors, all sorts of ways. We will be meeting here, I believe it's next week or next week or the following week to get an update on how things are going. One of the grants that they applied for, and I can't remember if it was Pennington or EL Cord, they applied for $10,000 for supplies for each center. So it was $50,000, $10,000 per center, to provide direct client services, office supplies, supplies for clients as needed, gas vouchers, any sort of like basic need kinds of thing that some of our grants might not have as much supply money this year because it's sort of taken over by salaries right now. And so that will be helpful if we're able to get something like that.
Thank you. All right, we're going to send it to the public. Is there any public comment on this item?
There is none.
Okay. Any action desired by the council? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2.03, which is presentation and discussion of the Washoe County School District Family Resource Center data and outreach events, including future community outreach events and volunteer opportunities. This item is for presentation and discussion only. I'll send it out to Jesse and Lisa. Welcome.
Thank you. This is Yesenia Segura for the record.
Can I pause you right there just so that we can make sure that they have the attachments on our virtual?
Okay.
Sorry.
I believe this is the, sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on, folks. Sorry about that. Is it the activities and outreach? The data.
Data for.
Okay, this is the FRC data FY 20 through 25 document for those of you online.
Thank you. Okay.
As requested by you, Chair Scott, we have pulled the data for close to 6 years from FY 20 school year through now, FY 2025. The only month missing for this current school year is the month of June, since we just started that month. So we have a data for 5 years and 11 months altogether. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to review those numbers, since unless you want me to speak each of them.
No,
So,
I just wanted it so that we can see the trends that are maybe
Sure.
happening.
I do want to point out a disclaimer that based on our eLogic database, just went through a new processes, and each school year it does the updates and it changes on what the numbers are looking at, the individuals in which kind and in what month, if they're returning or non-returning or new, and each month throughout the school year. It usually happens when the school year ends and a new one begins, but this one caught us by surprise a little bit. So it started changing mid-school year, where some numbers may be a little off or not. So especially at the beginning of the school year, when we first purchased eLogic, which is our database where we keep all the records of all the clients and families that we serve. So you will see that difference mainly because of that. We were getting used to using the new database. Our advocates were getting trained to use them. Us as a specialist also getting trained to use it on top of 2020 having the pandemic as well. So from there, you'll see those changes. I also broke down some of the services, not all, but most of the major ones that clients do come to get those direct services from our offices. So I did break those down starting 2019, 2020 through 2024, 2025. Okay?
So just at quick glance, I think we can attribute the need as the numbers increasingly go up year over year. But I'm interested to hear, knowing that we were in the middle of, or at the beginning of the pandemic for FY21, the numbers went down from 2020 to 2021. We were at like 5,700, and then during the pandemic, it was at 5,100. Is it lack of
It's
accessibility? Like we were truly in a pandemic and people
Well,
weren't coming out and
as a district, we're trying to figure out what to do remotely, and also the new database and the changes on the data processes, along with trying to still serve our community and figuring out how to do that without being in person and how to move on to virtual. And I also believe that's when we inquired Call Rail, which is our text phone services, which allowed our clients to not necessarily come in person in our office any longer, but text us and do everything virtually, remotely, without them physically coming into our office.
thank you.
I'll just say too that during that time, we started to see a decline in enrollment overall in Washington County School District. We saw numbers for CIT decrease. There were some things happening with numbers and people coming out in person and accessing things, and people were pretty transient during that time too. So there were some different kinds of behaviors that our families, were experiencing at that time, I think. I don't have any evidence of that, but I can just say that a lot of our data went down for some reason.
This is Ann Corey for the record. Nonetheless, the trend over time is definitely up and up and up, and it's grown tremendously. And the fact that you've been able to handle that growth without a big increase in staff is a little frightening.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning, like looking at the numbers, it's apparent the winter is always the hardest. No matter what year we look at, it seems like those are when the numbers are the greatest.
Yes, especially with utility assistance and housing assistance, and now adding to that, not only still seeing that, but adding food needs are growing as we speak, and hygiene and all of that. So, yeah.
Anything that you want to know? Oh,
Sorry, I have a question. Jesse, this is Jose for the record. I did notice that in 2024, maybe you mentioned it and I couldn't hear, about transportation assistance for household. It did show that you had some in 2024, but in this school year, it doesn't show up on your track record. Is there something, I don't know, did I miss what you said?
What year?
And I have a second, and then I have another question to ask after that.
Okay, year 24?
Year 2025, the current school
Oh,
year.
the current school
It's,
year.
If you see on
It's
2024,
missing?
we're tracking transportation assistance, and then 2025, it does not appear.
I do apologize. This was me working late evening hours. My eyes were messing with me, so sorry. I can, however, pull that as we're speaking right now because I have it. I have the raw data with me.
thank you.
Oh, no, that's fine, Jesse. I just wanted to know because I did notice that I know there are people still talking about transportation. I know you guys do a lot on transportation, so I just wanted to know if there's something was missing or you clumped it with another category.
Thank you for catching that. No problem. I am going to pull it up, and then if there are any more questions while I find that raw data, I can definitely give you the numbers right
And
now.
then, yeah, and then my second question was that what are other avenues that your guys are seeing that are not being probably tracked, but that you maybe eventually might be a new trend that is coming that you're seeing that's facing the community in the FRC?
So we do track all the services that we serve. These are just the major ones that we see on a day-to-day basis. And one of the more main ones, I don't know if my colleague Lisa wants to add, but we do a lot of case management, especially at her side, being that she's a licensed social worker. We do try our best to focus on not just serving the head of household, but the entire family, however that may look. But we do see a lot of need of that just because when, I don't know, a family or an individual is in crisis, as a mom or as a dad or as a grandparent or uncle, whoever may the head of household be, when they're in crisis, they have a difficult time in putting things together and just understanding how to get out of that crisis. So case management, doing those needs assessments and kind of helping them and guiding them to see a much clearer way out. And we do offer a lot of those services. We do partner a lot of services as well with NNLC, offering English classes. If we do have parents, we do see that a lot, that want to do and help themselves with their English language and how to better support their student or just get better jobs. We do see a lot of that need as well. And on top of other that maybe Lisa may want to add.
Excuse me. Hi, this is Lisa Guzman for the record. And the only thing I can really think of, I mean, these are definitely our heavy hitters, the rent, utilities, food, all of the basic needs. But one thing that I don't know if we are really tracking in eLogic is services to people with disabilities, because there's a lot of work that goes into that, referring them, linking them with other agencies to maybe help them apply for disability and just kind of meet some special needs around that. So in trying to think of some other services that we're providing that might not necessarily be reflected here, that's one that comes to mind. But other than that, I think this is pretty comprehensive. Also maybe kind of advocacy within our intervention department and working with families and other district staff to help children be successful in school and meet their educational needs.
Lisa, may I say something? Just adding on to what you all both said. Also, I think I heard you ask, Jose, if we anticipate any changes in the future. And I would like to say that we have been for many years working on an initiative called Full Service Community Schools, and has been on that committee as well. That funding, it looks like, has been completely eliminated in the budget. But we still continue to meet because we're trying to figure out how do we regroup, right? We were trying to seek funding to help begin and implement full service community schools in a few of our schools, sort of as a pilot. And in short, that's sort of co-locating resources based on what the community and the school community, the business community in that area identifies as needs for them, essentially making the school sort of a community hub. Family resource centers are a part of that. And so when we met last, we sort of talked about this reality that many of our nonprofits in Washoe County, who we rely on as formalized partners when we can't provide direct services, or we're providing referrals to them when families need additional resources, many of them rely on federal funds. And so there's an estimated, according to United Way, an estimated 1,000 nonprofits in this county who could potentially lose part of their funding or all of their funding, which means we're going to have huge gaps in Washoe County for services and resources for our families. We have our family resource centers, but we can't be everything to everyone. We are focused on helping families access basic needs, right? And sustain those basic needs. But we have mental health providers. We have all these different resources that could potentially either be drastically reduced or eliminated completely based on what happens at a federal level for them. And so we are, to answer your question, Jose, in a really long way, I am worried that we are going to have things like our Medicaid applications and our SNAP applications be drastically reduced, that we're going to see families have a more difficult time accessing sustainable ways to purchase food, to have a lack of access to health care, because if Medicaid is cut, how are they going to access health care? So those kinds of things, I think, I'm worried are coming in the future based on where we're at with federal funds, but we don't know, right, until it all comes down. So we as a community are trying to meet together in the fall so that once everything is decided, we can sort of come together family resource centers and all of our other nonprofits and our community agencies in Washoe County to decide how can we leverage each other's resources and supports, where are our gaps, and how can we support each other as we move forward to support our community. So that's a long way to say I'm a little worried about resources in Washoe County.
Thank you for answering that question for all three of you.
You're welcome. I was able to pull the data you requested that I'm sorry I missed. For transportation so far for this school year is 82 households.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Perla, go for it.
Perla Garcia for the record. I did want to ask Lisa, typically how long are you doing case management on average for a family that you're providing that to?
Lisa Guzman for the record. That's a good question, and I don't really have a fixed number. I think it just really varies depending on where the family's at, their level of investment. I mean, I will say there are families that I have worked with for over 15 years, and there are families that we see once and just don't want to engage again. There are families that only reach out when they're in a crisis situation, unfortunately, because we wish we could manage that a little bit better. We are here to support the family in any way and over whatever length of time they would like to work with us. So it definitely is very open and on a case-by-case basis. I mean, sorry, do you have a more specific?
I do agree with Lisa. It just depends on the needs, and throughout one day we see different cases. A lot of them that do get very engaged, like Lisa mentioned, that do want the help, that do want to see it, but some that it's not that they don't want it, it's just they don't have the capacity to focus on that yet, and they just are in crisis and they just want right away the help, and they don't really see outside that. So we tried our best to help them see it, but it's only, so much that we can do without one-sided.
Perla Garcia.
This is Jose on the record. For the record, I know that you guys mentioned about rent to assistant really it's affecting more people these days. How are you guys selecting people who do get rental assistance, and how are we making sure that they're not kind of come back 3 months later and asking for those the rental assistance? Are you connected to maybe some other organizations that can help them do help them get out of that cycle and make sure it's a long-term kind of education wise on like financials and stuff like that? I know that certain FRC did some like financial courts classes. I just did that on the sheet. So I wanted to see what is your guys' method on that.
Lisa Guzman for the record. So a lot of times families come to us in crisis where they have been displaced, or they are on the verge of getting displaced, or they're literally waiting for the sheriff to show up, or the sheriff has just shown up. So there are times I feel like we do need to step in to try to prevent a family from ending up on the streets, and to give us a little bit of time to try to come up with a plan to address those issues that you just mentioned, to try to get a plan in place for stability, to try to connect them with some other agencies that might be able to help them over the longer term. But at the end of the day, if we have some emergency funding and a family is literally getting ready to end up on the streets, we'll put them in a motel for a few days, maybe for a week, while we try to get some things into place. Then it's going to be up to the family to see what their level of engagement is in following through with the plan that we have set. Sometimes people take off running and they can get into stable housing. Other times it might just be too much that they can't get out of that. Or, we may end up having to reach out to human services agency if a family is following through and simply the situation is just too involved and there's no resources and nothing really to try to get traction to help them become stable. So I think that we do take all of those approaches depending on the situation with the family, but when we are fortunate enough to have some emergency funds, we will start off trying to prevent the family from becoming homeless and do our best to work with them to try to get a plan in place. Now, obviously, we cannot pay people's rent on an ongoing basis. And there are times that we do have a plan and the family falters and doesn't follow through, and they do come back to us and ask for additional help. But the bottom line is our funding is too limited and the needs are too great for us to continue helping families that aren't really in a place to be helping themselves. And that might be to no fault of their own. It could just be that the situation is too grave. And that is when we do have to reach out to some of our partners and maybe get child welfare involved.
But we do also, Lisa, just adding on to everything that you just said, we do have criteria that we've developed to sort of give us some guidance around, you know, when would we step in? When is it important for us to make a decision about rental or usually emergency weekly motel assistance sorts of things? And then there's eLogic that helps us track how many services a client has been given. So that you can see over the years what has been provided to a client as well. But, you know, for consistency across all 5 centers, we had to do some kind of criteria. Now, there are times where, you know, there's a gray area. It's not black and white. So sometimes we have to make decisions based on the circumstances to give them additional support, because maybe they got a job and now they're ready to get into housing, but they just need a little bit more time so that paycheck comes and then they're able to move into their apartment.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Rebecca for the record. On the data here, it talks about a goal worksheet. Is that mandatory for people that you help, or when does the goal worksheet come into place? Like, how many goals do they have? Are there incentives for the goals? Like, how does that work?
Well, the worksheet in all sense begins when the client does come into our office and we begin a needs assessment, and perhaps what brought them in is needing food. But then as we do the needs assessment, we find out that it's not just one service, and they were not really familiar how we can support them better. So we then understand perhaps their utility bill is in the verge to getting disconnected because for whatever reason, it may not be in their name, they're being in their name trying to open a new account and they have a previous account. And then so based on those needs assessments, we then decide on the goal of, okay, how can we move into a stabilization, whatever that need may be. If there's more than one need, we began that date of the first contact of that school year is the beginning of that goal, and we're having those conversations, whether it's on the phone or in person with the client. And we begin setting those goals and we start talking about it with the head of household, of course, and kind of understanding the bigger picture of what their capabilities are to try to be in the long run more stable. So then once we go one goal at a time, with never that month may lay down on, let's say they come in on July of the beginning of the school year, and they told us about their needs, and we found out that there were 3 needs, and 2 out of those 3 needs were met because the other one perhaps maybe was not followed through by the client for whatever reason. Maybe they were not able to gather or their documents to be able to qualify for Medicaid or for SNAP or for energy assistance. So then that 3rd goal is pending. So when they return and they try it again and they gather all their needed documentations, then we're able to finalize those 3 goals and then move that family together into a more stable situation. But then who knows, by that time, that family may have another need, and then we start over based on those needs assessment. I don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully it did. If not, I have Lisa here to help.
No, that works. Thank you, Jesse.
Perla, back to you.
Garcia, for the record. Just going back to the case management, I just wanted to give you some kudos because I feel like, in a way, all of you probably do case management in a different sort of fashion, but it is a really hard area because, like you mentioned, you can be ready to provide somebody everything, but if they are not ready themselves, you've already put in all of that time and they've gone away, or like you mentioned, they come back in crisis and you might not always have everything that they need. So I know that is hard work. So thank you for all that you do. And then I had a question about the goal worksheet. Are you checking, like how often are you checking in with the family regarding the goals that they have, or is it just as they are connecting with you about for them?
Thank you, and thank you for your question, Lisa Guzman, for the record. I would say in the ideal world, I would love to be able to follow up with all of our clients like weekly and see how they're doing and prevent these crises and follow up on their goals. The reality is we do not have the staffing to be able to do that. So the reality is most of the time it's up to the client to reach back out to us. I mean, they know that we're here, we are happy to support them at whatever level they would like, but typically the responsibility would be on them to reach back out. Now, sometimes, if it's something intensive and there's a lot going on and we need to be following up, then that might look a little different. But there's such a volume coming in through the door that we're always trying to keep up with, that speaking personally, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but for me, it's hard sometimes to go back and do that follow-up. So we always ask people to reach back out to us and let us know how they're doing, remind them that we're here, but sometimes that responsibility has to fall on them.
Great answer, Lisa. Spoken like a real social worker. Great question, Perla. Anne.
This is Ann Corey for the record. Just an observation that the Family Resource Center kind of ecosystem is connected to so many things, as you've mentioned, and all of those areas are receiving cuts to their funding. All of the safety net services are unraveling. And so certainly what Rochelle talked about and everyone getting together and talking about better ways to collaborate will provide some strength, but there's just going to be a whole lot of unmet need. And as horrible as that is to face, I think there's only so much we can do about it. On that cheery note.
On that cheery note, I don't think we're the only ones experiencing that. I think, going back to what Rochelle said, the community is going to have to rely on each other, and so it's going to certainly open the opportunity for dialogue with community partners and understanding how we continue to put FRCs at the forefront of their conversations. Because we want to be that one-stop shop for the community. And something I have taken pride in knowing is that the FRCs turn every no into a yes when possible. And so it's going to be unfortunate that there's going to be a no that we can't turn into a yes, but it will not be done without exhausting every possible option. And I know that, and I want that to be the conversation piece that we have, that we exhaust every option before we turn to a partner. Like, we exhaust every penny in our bucket and often go into that IOU bucket. So I appreciate the conversation. Anything else, Jesse, before we close out this item?
Unless you guys have any more questions, I think, that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for engaging in that conversation.
Well, thank you.
Okay, council members, are there any other conversations around item 2.03? Hearing none, we'll close that item and move on to item 2.04, which is the discussion of community resources and partnerships and how to enhance services coordination and delivery at Washoe County School District Family Resource Centers. Again, this is for presentation and discussion only. Lisa, I'm going to not go into that item. We're going to go back to the outreach events on item 2.03. I'm sorry. And future community outreach events and volunteer opportunities. I totally skipped over the important part of why we're here.
Thank you for that. So everyone should have access to the list of our outreach activities and collaborations since we met last. So this covers activities for March through May. If everyone wants to take a look at that, and I do want to point out on the second page some upcoming events. We have on here as a standing item the webinar Wednesdays from the National Family Support Network. I got an email on this one that sounds really interesting, and I did sign up for it, From Under the Radar to All the Rage, FRCs and FRC networks on June 25th, and there's no cost to register for that. So if you're interested and available, please feel free to follow that link and get signed up. We did have one Family Health Festival that just passed in May, and we have 2 more coming up if you want to take note of those. And I will share my favorite activities of the last few months. So we did something new recently in the intervention department where the Family Resource Center staff had a meeting with CIT, Children in Transition staff, to discuss how we can enhance our collaborations, and that was a very fruitful and productive meeting. So enjoyed that. And then we are also now doing vertical meetings with our colleagues in the intervention department because we're working with a lot of the same families. So it gives us a time to spend more time together and to discuss how we can further collaborate. So these are both brand new activities that were very productive and helpful, and I'm looking forward to them. And thank you to Rochelle for spearheading that for us.
Thank you for sharing. Any other events that stick out as something that from the March through May list? Rochelle?
Oh gosh, March feels so long ago already. I can tell you that our district just finished up 2 days of professional development, and it was a great opportunity for us to come together. We haven't done this in the format that we did before, and so we came together under the Office of Student Supports, who is led by Dr. Paula Marca, and it included all of the family resource centers and then other staff in my department, children in transition and attendance officers, re-engagement specialists, but it also included school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, behavior specialists, just everyone that Dr. LaMarca helps to support and oversees. And so we provided a variety of different trainings that were applicable to the work that they did. So we did trainings about grief and coping. We did trainings about safety. We did trainings about AI and learned some really new things about AI and how we can use it to help to develop grant proposals, all sorts of things. So, and how we can use it in an ethical way. We did a children in transition training. There was just a variety of different trainings, so we were able to come together collectively, and I thought it was a great opportunity for us to connect, to collaborate, and to learn. So that was a good memory, just because especially it was like the last 2 days, so that's all my memory is letting me go back to. So, yeah.
I like that. Well, you came back to the hot seat, so you get to answer the question too. Please.
So, I'm trying to focus as well because I forgot to say something about the upcoming events. But so I'm going to say that first, if you don't mind. There were a couple events that we left out because there's a lot going on. We will be attending the Christmas in July event that is hosted by the Washoe County Sheriff's Office on July 19th, WCSD Boys and Girls Club, and they give out a whole lot of back-to-school items, over thousands and thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. So we will be part of that again this year. And favorite events, everyone that we do attend, whether we host it or not, it's really good to go and see the reaction, especially when we have an internal training like we did, like Rochelle mentioned. And there's also the new financial budgeting that Jose was mentioning that we did. The North Valley's Family Resource Center, we opened it up for anyone to attend, both separate in English and in Spanish. So those were really great. We had a great turnout, a lot of focus, a lot of learning opportunities for our community on how to better budget our money, because sometimes we forget. I know I do. So it was a good reminder of how to better save and make good decisions.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Lisa Guzman for the record. I have another upcoming event that I would like to mention as well. So many of you are familiar with the Human Services Network Annual Awards Breakfast. And this year, instead of in the middle of winter, it will be on August 14th. So we are in the process of looking at that, and will likely be purchasing tickets and hope that you will be able to join us. So stay tuned for more information on that. I will be reaching out, but that is August 14th. Thank you.
We have a stranger coming to the podium. Brenda, welcome.
Hi, Brenda Costello for the record. I have a really sore throat, but I wanted to throw my hat in the ring for my favorite outreach event. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I think we did 9 outreach events between 2 staff. I have one staff that is kind of back to work, but not really. She suffered a tragedy. So 9 back to school or child abuse prevention activities in April for 2 people. My favorite one of those was the biggest little Easter egg hunt. It was at the Boys and Girls Club, and there were, I think, a ridiculous amount of people, 800, something like that. So it was an amazing event, and blue pinwheels everywhere. If you've not attended that event, you should come. It's pretty fun. They have the first hour is an adaptive Easter egg hunt. So there's one in silence. There's one led for blind little ones. There's one, so it's pretty interesting. So thank you so much.
Jean, you're not escaping the question. Hello, Jean, welcome. Oh, we're not on yet. There you are.
All right. Jean McElwee for the record. I didn't do very many events, but one of my favorites is always going back to school is we had a couple of them. One at Wooster, the transition days where you have kids from middle school that will get introduced to going into high school. And then we had one this last month from 5th grade, the 5th graders transitioning into Swope Middle School. And they're all eager to come in and to be big middle schoolers or be big, high schoolers. So that's always fun because it's very well attended, and we get to pass out a lot of our flyers, and some people walk by and, oh yeah, I've been to the family resources, and some don't. And we had these really cool little hand sanitizers that were Marvel characters that Brenda got donated from one of her vendors, and they're always a hit. So they're coming constantly to our tables.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Any other items under 2.03 that we need to discuss before I move on? No? Okay. Now we'll move on to 2.04, the discussion of community resources and partnerships and how to enhance service coordination and delivery at Washoe County School District Family Resource Centers. For presentation and discussion only, I will open this item as to why I requested it on here. Lisa and I had a great conversation about how do we engage our community partners in the resources that they offer? And so I think with this, I wanted to truly highlight a community partner that has stood out to our partnership and collaboration with the Family Resource Centers every meeting. So every quarter we have a partner that you guys tell us about that you can bring and invite to present to us whatever that looks like, so that we as a community board understand the work that you guys are putting in. We hear from you guys all the time, but how is it impacting our partners? I think the impact is what I'm looking for. And I'm going to put somebody on the spot just because he's here and he's on our council, but I'm going to throw Jose out there. I think he is the innovative idea behind my thinking of this. Prior to him coming to the council, he is a community partner. And so I wanted to ask him to maybe elaborate on why the Family Resource Centers are a community partner with his company that he works for.
Thank you for putting me on the spot, Scott. This is Suzanne for the record. I think how I always tell our community partners that when I work with them, I said that the first thing I always said that the Family Resource Centers are like a hidden gem, that they go above and beyond I'm not dissing any of our other community partners, but they really do go above and beyond. I have interacted with all 4 of the site directors, and they have, when I call them and say, hey, I'm doing this and that, they're willing to jump in and be there for me. Like, even for my events that I create, I always ask all of them, and they're like, hey, I have this weird idea. How do we bring this to fruition? And how do we bring this to our community? And they're willing to give me the best ideas. And, I can say a lot of things for each one of them, but they're I don't know, they're just such a great team. As you all probably know, I do work with the Medicaid population, so majority of the people they see are our members. There might be the children, there might be the whole family, and then when they call me, they're like, hey, Jose, can you connect us to their case managers for the managed care that they're associated with? They call me sometimes. Sometimes they ask me in some weird times. They're like, "Hey, can you check this for us?" So we do have a great rapport for one of each other. I know that they always ask. Sometimes they ask us for funding, and we're always looking for ways to partner. I think the biggest highlight that when I worked with my current role is that we were able to sponsor sorry, my dog, but we sponsored them to get trained to be community health workers. That is something that Melina felt that was a good initiative for the work that they're doing, because they do so much work. So I can go on and on, but I think that's just some of the highlights that I look as I can lean them as a strong. I can say in my organization and say it as the Family Resource Center is one of our strongest partners.
Thank you for sharing that. Lisa, throw it over to you. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, discuss under this item before I send it over to the council members.
Thank you, Chair Benton. I just kind of want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and I was thinking that it would kind of come up here, but we were just kind of talking earlier about our partnerships and what's happening at a national level and in our community, and how many of our partner agencies are being affected. And we have said many times we cannot do our job without our community partners. So we are all just incredibly thankful for them, and just literally we can't do everything ourselves. And I'm just very thankful for the relationships that we have with Melina, with CSA, with WIN, with all of our partner agencies, and it it is going to be a very difficult time, I think, coming up. And I appreciate this agenda item. Thank you for suggesting it. And we do definitely need to find ways to work together and help our increasingly shrinking resources be able to go as far as possible to serve our families, because the needs are certainly not going to decrease.
Thank you. Anne?
Chair Benton, can I just say really quick?
Absolutely.
I would like to just bring up again that there is this movement that we've had, this full service community school group, and because they want to get together, and many of you work in this area as well as serve on this committee, or you volunteer your time to support and advocate for these initiatives. I would love to be able to invite you all, if you so wish, to participate in the fall. It sounds like it'll be led by Blake at United Way. Hopeful of that. UNR has some interest to lead some of that in a more formalized way with us as well. And they're sort of focused around the mental health aspect, but we know that family resource centers directly impact mental health when we can prevent families going into crisis. So those are all sort of interconnected. So I'd like to just put out there, invite you guys to consider participating in the future in some of those, because you all can be a voice for family resource centers and our community as a whole, because you are all experts in that.
Thank you. Anne?
Ann Corey, for the record. Mentioning United Way, there have been at various times different organizations that have kind of led the human services community in moving forward together and collaborating. And there have been points when it was United Way. There was a time when it was HSN, the Human Services Network. Is anyone serving that function now effectively, or is everyone just too stretched?
I'm wondering if Jessica has any insight into that, because I know she was in Human Services Network and did some leadership in there. So I'm wondering, Jessica, do you know of any other efforts other than what we're sort of just organically talking about, and it's not anything formal yet?
Sure. So from a formal perspective, HSN did transfer some responsibilities and activities over to the Children's Advocacy Alliance. And so and I know they're also going through, of course, we did that transfer, and then they're going through some executive transition as well. But my understanding is that in addition to the event, they're also going to be picking up some of those advocacy pieces and those collaboration pieces. But I don't think anything has come to fruition yet on that. And so everything else is really just organic. And to my knowledge, it really is the United Way that is sort of taking the lead on local advocacy efforts right now, or just around sort of general funding and support for agency, nonprofits, and organizations.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that insight, Jessica. Perla, go for it.
Perla Garcia for the record. I did just want to say, in the work that I do, because I work in children's mental health, I have been able to link some of our families to the family resource centers, and because we work with them a little more long term, I'm able to hear a lot of feedback, and a lot of families have told me that you have a very safe space for them to be able to come in and access resources, and it feels very homey and everybody's very friendly. And I think that especially in the Latino community, because I work with a lot of that community, sometimes it can be daunting to go and ask for those resources, or you have experienced events where people have turned you away or didn't want to go the extra mile to provide the interpreter services for you to share what your needs are. But I have sent over many families, and I've gotten really great feedback, and I think having a safe space is incredibly important for families. So thank you for that.
Lisa.
Lisa Guzman for the record. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm very glad to hear that. That really touches my heart, and 1,000%, that is our goal. That is our mission, to help families feel welcome and safe, and do our best to help them meet their needs and goals, whatever that might look like for each family. So thank you, and I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
I have a
Any-
question. This is Rebecca for the record.
Hello, Rebecca. Go for it.
And this might be the wrong slide to talk about it on, or the wrong number. But Perla kind of brought up something about mental health, and I noticed that on the data, unless I'm missing it, it doesn't talk about that. Do you guys track, like, if you guys refer out to any kind of mental health or therapy or anything like that?
Lisa Guzman for the record. I'm going to ask for help from my colleagues, but I am not aware of that being a service in eLogic.
We do not currently have that, mainly because I don't believe we have certified staff to provide those type of services in our family resource centers, but we do refer them out, but we don't have that service added. We can request our eLogic data staff that oversee the database to add it if at all needed from here on forward, because I do believe that it's important to track those referrals. We do track referrals in a bigger picture, but not in individual services.
Anne.
Ann Corey for the record.
Okay, thanks.
It may be that the best way to get some of that data is to go to some of the partners who are providing the services. I know that that HOPES and Community Health Alliance have very stringent reporting requirements, and so they have lots of data about the mental health services they've provided.
Right. Just the main idea will be, how do we sync them to our clients that we see in historical, if we want to go back historically. But we can certainly start requesting those focus referrals on mental health and more, because we do that constantly.
Great conversation. We'll close that item and move along into the item 2.05, which is presentation and discussion of summer programming at Washoe County School District Family Resource Center sites. Again, for presentation and discussion. This agenda item stemmed from an awareness to our community, what we're doing at the Family Resource Centers. Because we're co-located at a school site, that doesn't mean that we are shut down. So I wanted to toss it out to our Family Resource Center staff to give a very brief introduction to what the summer looks like for you guys. And we're not going to call on Brenda because she can't talk.
We can do both. Lisa and I will do this collaboratively. So because we're located in school site centers, sometimes that impacts the hours and days that we can offer direct in-person services, because, like, for example, HUG or Desert Skies, that's the time they clean carpets, they wax the floors, they are doing all sorts of, like, the upkeep of the school. So they can fluctuate depending on what's happening at each school site. We still are open. We're still providing support, monitoring those telephones. Then we're also connecting families to food, because frequently when students are out of school, they don't have access to food as they did when they were in school. The breakfast and lunch programs that schools provide. So Kids Cafe is an important resource that we rely on. Our food pantries at some of our Family Resource Center sites, those kinds of things are still ongoing throughout the summer to help, especially with food insecurity. And so those are some of those other things. So it's sort of like they're going to continue on, right, and do all of those things. Is there anything else that I'm missing, forgetting? Here comes Brenda with her sore throat.
Just because Scott told me I couldn't talk. So today was the first day of the Boys and Girls Club at Desert Skies, and the families were all lost. So as I walked them all the way around the back of the campus, I handed out our flyer and NV Energy flyers and We also plan to take our show on the road to a couple of the Kids Cafe locations because it's summer and it is nice to get out with staff. It feels, we're still working, but it feels fun and you get to play with the kids. And so we'll do some more outreach events. Also today, we had no air conditioning in the Family Resource Center, so that was also a good opportunity to get outside.
And since you're here and you're talking about traveling, what does it look like for Gerlach and Incline when we try to reach those families that might be in need?
So I will let Rochelle talk about a meeting that we had with some Incline folks, and I will say that I put the hunger grant that we did not receive, I had actually put in that we would be supporting Natchez and Gerlach and Wadsworth tribal members, and we didn't unfortunately get that grant, but I put those same dollars into our SNAP education grant that we should have heard on today as well. So fingers crossed, but we're definitely supporting that. We have an attendance officer, Natalie, that loves that community and has said, road trip, I'll buy the snacks. So apparently I'll be going to Gerlach this summer too.
So we sort of do it as needed out in Gerlach. They do go out and do home visits. Right now, our attendance officer, who is under the umbrella of the same department as Family Resource Centers, is frequently going out there. She just went to watch one of the girls that she worked with graduate. I think she was the only one that graduated out in Gerlach. There might have been more, but that's the one that she told me about. It's a small class and it's a really close-knit community, but she told me about every board of trustee member went out to watch them graduate. So we still as a school district support them as much as we possibly can. And Natalie is sort of that connector. So if they identify a family that does need resources through the Family Resource Center, she's going to be that liaison to connect the family to the Family Resource Centers. And it sounds like Brenda's going to do a field trip out there. For Incline, they have Tahoe, I'm going to get it wrong because I didn't write it down. Tahoe Solutions, I believe is what it's called. And so they provide a variety of resources in the Incline area. But they recently came down and met with Brenda and I regarding collaborating with them, potentially locating an additional Family Resource Center up there if we were ever able to expand. There is a need for resources and support up in Incline. And so we talked a little bit about the services that we provide, what they provide, and what that collaboration could potentially look like. And that is one area that Strengthening Our Communities would like to expand to if given the funding. So that might be an area that we potentially expand out to. So we'll see. It could be potentially in the future.
Thank you. And if I can be a part of the conversation, I would love to. Incline has become a very sacred place to me. Full disclosure, both of my older children, they're elementary school principals, now the high school principal up there. So through the education that she provided to my kids, we became friends. And I hear that there is a greater need than what is on the surface happening up there.
There really is. So, and we as a department have tried to figure out strategies to better support them, to be up there physically more often. I know I've talked to Ms. Cahill about that and that they need more support. So we're trying to get up there more frequently from that attendance officer perspective, and they are always liaisons to connect families to the Family Resource Center if needs arise. And they can go up too if they need to. It's just that is not something that they have the capability to do on a regular basis right now, given our staffing. But we do have liaisons that can help connect families right now. So that's one way that we're trying to support some of those rural Washoe County areas.
And I think something that is unique to Incline and maybe even Gerlach is the climate. Oftentimes kids are showing up to school in bare socks, and it prevents them from focusing on their true reason why they're at school. And so I think oftentimes we take advantage of it here in the valley because we don't get feet of snow, and it doesn't cross our mind that there might be an individual or a group of individuals that are truly suffering one thing from one thing. And I think we talk about it all the time, like truancy is going to prevent kids from learning and advancing in life, and how do we contribute to that? And if you don't have shoes to go to school, you're not going to go to school. That's not your priority. And if it means you're going to go with dad and shovel snow and make $150, that's what you're going to do. And so I just want to put that on the forethought of some of the things that we do. I know that Washoe County is vastly an array of climate. We go from 100 degrees to 50 degrees in the same day. And how do we adapt to everybody's needs? It goes back to we're not going to, but how do we attempt to prevent stuff like that from happening? And being inclusive. Like there's still Incline and Gerlach maybe outside the Reno Sparks greater area, but there's still the need. And I think it's more greater in those communities because we all assume that Incline comes from money. The community has money to give, and they truly don't. That community survives on industry service workers.
Yeah, service industry, and they're often not making living wage, right. Not in Incline, not in Washoe County. So,
right.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing that conversation to happen, and I hope to spark an interest in everybody to remember. I mean, Gerlach, we go all the way out to right before Fernley, and it's still Washoe County, and it's still home. Like, it may not be in our backyard, but it's still home for all of us. Okay, any other
This is
conversation?
Jose. This is Jose for the record.
Hello.
I know, Brenda, you do a lot of work, and I really appreciate you working with our tribal community. As probably everyone know, I do live in Nixon. I'm a guest at the Pyramid Lake reservation. My partner is Paiute through the Pyramid Lake. My question is, how's the relationship going with the tribal communities, going to give them services? Because I know they are, and I know it firsthand, but they're really sometimes reserved on getting resources, especially from I guess from the urban communities. How's that relationship, and is there any conversations on other programs that we can bring down to those communities in Nixon, Wadsworth, and Sutcliffe?
Hi, this is Brenda for the record. Thanks for making me talk, Jose. So, and I'm going to let Rochelle fill in some gaps here as well with more of her title, but I work with Fawn, who is our Native American cultural liaison. Is that correct? And so Fawn and I have collaborated on the 2 grants that I wrote that included those areas in there. And so, but I work through Fawn with the school pantries and some of the, like, within the school system. So generally it's not kind of on the, we're not setting up a pantry outside where they may feel uncomfortable. Folks might feel uncomfortable in any neighborhood just approaching us. So, but I work through Fawn. And you can tell a little bit more about what Shmai.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Brenda said, so Fawn also oversees student graduation advocates, and they do a lot of different things, but one of the things that they do is connect and support and advocate, mentor our Native American students. And so they connect with us on a regular basis when there are families that are in need. And we have been also meeting regularly with Reno Sparks Indian Colony to discuss collaboration in a broad sense with many different things, not just Family Resource Center, but attendance issues and mental health issues and all sorts of supports to comprehensively support our families and build connections. And then we have also done that out at Pyramid as well. So those conversations, at least I haven't been involved in those as closely as I have Reno Sparks Indian Colony. But we also work well with Natchez, who is out if you're from, I think everyone's familiar with where Natchez is out in Pyramid. So we collaborate with them, and those schools help to identify some families for us too that are in need, so we're able to connect with them as well. We would love, through full service community schools, expand out to Natchez, with Family Resource Centers being one of them, if funding was provided to expand out to Natchez and be out there more on a more consistent basis, because they are so far out there geographically, and transportation is a challenge. To be able to meet with families on a regular basis and be available would be would be something that we would love to be able to do.
No, thank you so much. The only reason I asked because I know sometimes the treble clinic was always asking for me for resources in the community, and knowing that they're so far away from Reno, the closest is Fernley, and that they're really limited. So I'm always looking for ideas to support that community.
Yeah, and if you ever have thoughts, Jose, or if you want to connect with us with anyone that wants more information, if we can come out and provide more information, we're happy to do that. So that we just bring awareness. That's something across Washoe County that we always have a goal of, is awareness about family resource centers everywhere. But in these particular populations that don't have access to resources, we would love to continue to connect with individuals so they're aware of our services.
Yeah, I think the best place in it, and it's a really, and me and Brenda have talked about it in the past, but Tribal Council is the best place to talk
Right.
to the community about the resources. But I know they're really, it's hard to get into the agenda.
Yeah.
So it's just finding the right person. If you guys would want to, I can probably pull some strings for that. But it is a long drive, and it's on a Friday night at 6 p.m. I don't know if that is something that your capacity can do that as well.
Well, I'm happy to do it. I live out in Spanish Springs, so it's not as far as some of us would have to drive, so I can do it.
Okay, so let me definitely talk to my partner. He's the expert matter on that, and see if I can connect you, Rochelle, to maybe the chairman of the tribe and also the tribal council. And
Okay.
hopefully maybe they can bring up a conversation with you guys.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, Anne.
And Corey, for the record, my understanding is that the Washoe County School District Initiative, Paiute Language Initiative, has also strengthened a lot of ties with the community out there.
Yeah, I think they just did the Paiute Language Bowl, so that's really cool. If you ever get a chance to go, it's really fun to participate in.
Okay.
And I don't know if everyone knows too, one of the board trustees is from Pyramid Lake as well too. So James Phoenix is one of the board members of Washoe County School District, and I know he's trying to bring more resources to the community, for the Native American community.
Okay, great conversation. Item 2.06, review of upcoming Council on Family Resource Centers meeting dates. As weird as it is, we have one meeting left in 2025. That is September 17th. And then we'll move into January 21st, 2026, April 15th, 2026, and then June 17th, 2026. And this is my moment to stress the importance for all of us to be here. Oftentimes we struggle to maintain quorum. So as part of a public meeting, we need to have enough voting members present. So if we can set those dates in our calendars now, that would be greatly appreciated. With that, we'll go on to our closing items. Item 3.01, public comment. Do we have anybody from the public wishing to speak?
There is none.
There is none. Should I call on the two that I haven't called on? No? Okay. All right. Again, a reminder of our next meeting is September 17th, 2025. And at 7:18, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.